Hello, we're going to start a new series over the summer and we're going to be looking at the story of Ruth. But we're going to be looking at the story of Ruth in 5 sections. Now, Thea and Jasmine Green, a couple of our Trekkers leaders, have put together a puppet theatre and they have made a puppet version retelling of the story of Ruth and have put the film in 5 parts together. So can I urge you to watch each part so that you know what happens in the story? And if you like reading, read the story of Ruth from your Bible. I can remember doing that and just thinking it was a really good story. Or get someone to read it to you, or find a Bible storybook with the story in. Now, we find out a lot of things in the story of Ruth. Here we have the puppet. This is Ruth from our puppet show. And the thing about Ruth that we find out is that she is actually, at the beginning of the story, not one of God's people. You see, the story starts with Naomi and her family leaving Bethlehem, leaving Israel, the land of God's people, because there's a famine, and going to another land called Moab, which is full of Moabites, and God's people traditionally didn't get on with the Moabites. The Moabites didn't like the Israelites. But anyway, we find out that Naomi's sons end up marrying girls from Moab, and Ruth is one of those girls. But during the story, we find out that Ruth must have seen something of Naomi's God. Naomi and her husband and her sons' God, that they follow the true God. So when it comes to Naomi going back to Bethlehem, Ruth wants to go with her. Now, this is a bigger sacrifice than maybe we think, because nowadays, well, certainly before COVID, it was quite normal. It's quite normal to travel to different countries, isn't it? But in those days, it was quite unusual. And for Ruth to go to a different country with a different religion, say goodbye to her family and culture, was a really big deal. And here we see Ruth is showing God's love. She is showing God's love in action. And the story of Ruth is also a story of how God shows his love to his people. And that's us as well, how God shows his love to us. Ruth shows her love by being a really faithful friend to Naomi, doesn't she? She wants to go where she goes, be where she is, and follow her God. So how can we show our love and faithfulness to our friends and family? But quite often, it's how we act and what we do for them, how we act to them. Now, that's a little bit harder with friends and wider family in the current situation. But the biggest thing you can do is pray for your friends or your family. Now, I'm going to make a really simple activity today, and it depends what you've got around your house, but I'm going to make a little reminder of a prayer string using string and pasta. So I've experimented with a few different types. I've got some really tiny macaroni and I've got some larger penne. The point is, they're tubes, so they're like beads. So you could either do this activity with beads and sort of nice cord if you've got a bead making set, or you can do it with pasta. I don't have a bead making set, so I'm going to use pasta and string. So to make a traditional friendship bracelet, you get your cord and you wrap it round sort of roughly twice the width of your wrist, and I'm going to add a bit more because my penne beads are quite thick. So snip it off, and then you will need to tie a pretty hefty knot at the end of each end. I'm doing double knots because my penne beads have quite, you see through, I can see you, have quite a large hole. I can imagine cord or thread easily slipping through that. There we go. Now, so when you've got your cord with the two ends tied in knots, fold it in half and then push the loop through your bead or your beads that you've chosen. There we go. Now mine's, and then you put your wrist through that and tighten it. Now I've actually made mine too big. I made one before that was too small. Look, this one was too small. I'll put a penne bead on it and you can see that it's a bit too small for my wrist. So that one's too small and this one's too big. But what I can do is I can put some more beads on, and I've decorated these pasta beads because the idea is you choose a bead that represents somebody you want to pray for. So either choose a colour or a pattern that reminds you of them, or colour your bead in, or you could even write somebody's name on your pasta bead. I've coloured this in green and written a name. It's probably quite hard to see. There we go. Shall we see if that fits now? Still too big. I can put one more on. I can decorate this later. There we go. Let's push it in. Oh, the end of my thread is getting, the end of my string is getting a bit ropey. There we go. Yes, there we go. That's my amazing bracelet that as it clonks around me today, I will remember to pray for 4 people that I've either put a colour on or written a name or written an initial to remind me to pray for them. Or you could, of course, just make a simple bracelet by just threading beads or pasta onto string. This is a little bit trickier because my string is only just going to fit through the macaroni. There we go. I could thread lots of macaroni pieces. Oh, my string's fraying. Let's try the other end. There we go. I hope this is not going to be terribly successful. Can I get another bit through? Twist, twist. I can just get that one through. Right, I'm going to quit while I'm ahead and have those 2 pieces of macaroni in the middle, and then I'm going to put some penne on next. There we go. So again, you could decorate these, colour them with felt tips, or if you're feeling very adventurous, you could paint them and leave them to dry, and then you could decide how you want to make your necklace or bracelet. Depends how long your string is. So obviously that's not going to fit around my neck, but I could make it into another long bracelet. So there we go. You could do that. If you look on the website, there's another suggestion on there of making your own very simple puppets, literally printing out and cutting out a piece of paper picture and sellotaping it onto the end of a pencil, and then you too could try retelling the story of Ruth and Naomi. Okay, I'll see you next time for part 2. Bye-bye.